Good morning. Ignore the cut on my lip. It's actually raging herpes. Today we're going to be talking about virtual production because it has never been easier. We are going to do this with no motion tracking, pretty much no rotoscoping. We're only going to do a couple of frames and we're going to train the Copycat node and Nuke to do the other 99.9% of frames. Pretty cool. We're also going to be using a program called Switchlight that will take that rotoscoped footage of ourselves and give us back a semi 3D model of ourselves so that we can relight our person. So our new CG environment that we're going to create will cast accurate lighting on our person. Pretty cool. If you like both of those last two pretty cool things, I'm actually doing a live stream with Dell's technology on January 9th, talking with the people who made those programs. I'm talking with Foundry, who makes Copycat, and Song, who made Switchlight. Pretty freaking cool. Please sign up. It's January 9th. I need 1,000 people to sign up or else Dell will take away my computer. First link in the description. Thank you so much. First thing, like I said, no motion tracking. We're using an app called Omniscient that actually not only records the footage, but also records the camera motion data of your phone. I don't know if it uses like LiDAR, your gyroscope or whatever, but allows us to skip the whole motion tracking progress. It records like where your camera is in physical space. Pretty cool. It also records like where your depth of field is, like what it was focused in on a time. Like pretty cool. That's all I can say. I'll try to come up with better adjectives in a minute. It is free. Every program I'm going to say in this has a free version or is free. The only thing is it does 1080, which I have no problem with. I export everything at 1080p. I usually record in 1080p. My only gripe with it is that it only does 1080p at H.264, which is an already compressed file type codec, whatever. And I don't like editing on footage that's already been compressed. It's kind of a nightmare, kind of a pain in the ass. So I did subscribe to the program for like 1 week. I think it was like $3. And that allowed me to record in ProRes. And then, not gonna lie, while I was already paying for the app, I might as well do 4K. So I did record my footage in 4K, but that's not why I paid for the app. Making sure you can still do the 1080p version. I'm sure H.264 is not as bad as I'm thinking it is. And of course, I'm doing this in Blender. So you click on that Blender add-on, Omniscient add-on. And if you have Blender, I think it only works in 4.2. Look how cool this is. Delete that ugly default cube. And if we bring open this thing, look at this, get add-on. You can drag and drop that into Blender. Pretty freaking cool. It's already installed. And then if you go to File, Import, Omniscient, you can import your file, but let me show you the next thing. Here's my thing. I love the app. I genuinely, wholeheartedly endorse it. It does have a couple problems though that aren't without a solution. So let me tell you those right now. When I first downloaded the app, it was only after I did the paid version, which is funny, but it was only after that it kept crashing. It never crashed while I was filming and I never lost any footage. I've never had any footage corrupted, but when I was done with the footage and I need to get it off of my phone on my computer, it kept crashing the app. I'd hit export, share or whatever, and it kept crashing the app. I reached out to the developer or the help support line, whatever. They sent me back an email. I'll put it up on the screen. This is a while ago, so they might have already solved it, but they put a list of things that might fix it, and it was the last thing on that list that actually fixed it for me. There was some switch in settings that was like, oh, save directly to your phone in files. I did that. That worked perfectly. And I'm not kidding. They probably have already fixed it. I'm pretty behind. I've been trying to make this video for like a month now. And there's another thing. I don't think this is a problem of the app developer. I think this is Google Drive. If you share it to Google Drive, it converts it all into one file that's literally just called like a file type. If this happens to you, really weird fix. You have to rename it .zip. Don't get that. Put that up on your desktop and then extract it out. Boom, there we go. Tutorial footage. And you're going to get all these things, including this footage of if Conan O'Brien had good music taste, walking like a dumbass. Sweet. So we have our footage and then we also have that .omni file we're talking about earlier. Now, file, import, Omniscient file here. Boom! It also gives you like a rough mesh of the thing. Before you film in the app, you actually do like a quick scan of your environment. This is just for reference if there's a curb or something, right? You hit Z and you go to material preview. It actually is already set up to actually project the footage from the camera back onto the mesh that you scanned. You can see how like locked down it is. Look at that, dude. That is a perfect track. It's a little sloppy actually, but it's better than I could ever track. And this thing, oh my God, a quick thing, praise for the app again. It like works if you like whip the phone. You know how when you record your videos and you kind of know that you're going to motion track later, so you kind of film it like, oh, very carefully, and you kind of give that vibe of, I'm going to put VFX on this later, so when you're watching the video, you know it's a VFX shot. This thing allows you to whip your phone any which way but loose, and it will give you a pretty solid track. I haven't seen it slip up. Like on average, it does this well of a track, even if you're whipping it as fast as possible. Nothing but praise for this app, but I'm going to not save that. We're going to come back to that later, because right now we're going to do the rotoscoping first, and like I said, we're going to be using Copycat in Nuke. There's a 100% free version of Nuke. I'm tired of telling people to use Nuke and they go, I don't have any money, but they pay $50 a month for Adobe. Anyway, free version of Nuke. It's non-commercial. They say there's limitations. I haven't found any. The only limitation I found is that you can only export at 1080p. It does require you to export if you do vertical footage like this. I'll show you in this tutorial how to quickly rotate it sideways to export it, because it won't export as a vertical thing. You rotate it like this, maybe bring it to a free program like DaVinci or something and rotate it back. Nuke before we give it to Switchlight. And I'm getting ahead of myself. Download Nuke, non-commercial. It's kind of a hefty file size. It might take a while to download. Start downloading that now before you finish the video. And then when you do that, you're going to use, it gives you every single version of Nuke. Nuke, Nuke X, Nuke Studio, Curio, Player, whatever it's called. And then all those programs again, but non-commercial. You're going to specifically open up Nuke X, non-commercial. I have the full version. I'm going to be using the full version. Don't hate the player, hate the game. But you're going to want to use Nuke X. I am going to go a little slower in the Nuke part of this video because I know not everyone's comfortable with Nuke. Most people still use After Effects for some reason. For instance, we're going to be using a lot of shortcuts and the keyboard a lot. And whatever button you hit on the keyboard is connected to where the mouse is when you hit it. For instance, with our mouse over the node graph over here, if we hit S, it brings up our project settings. But if we hit S with our mouse over the viewer, it brings up our viewer settings. You see what I mean? So if I hit some shortcuts, you can also see them down here. I got keylogger on. Look at where the mouse is, okay? So with our mouse over the node graph, we're going to hit tab and we're going to type in read. This is how we get our footage into Nuke. Mine's on my desktop. File 00, tutorial footage. First one, image 96 blah 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 .mov. Open. We have our footage right here, but we would like to view it. And we have our viewer right here. Can you guess how we connect them? Perfect. All right. So that's how you view things in Nuke. You can connect the viewer like that. You can disconnect it like that. But of course, there's shortcuts. Selecting your footage and hitting 1 on the keyboard will connect it to the viewer. And shaking things disconnects them. Pretty freaking cute. So we connect our footage to our viewer to view it. Oh, also you navigate with the holding down the middle mouse button to move things around. Works on everything. And if you get lost, you can either hit F or the middle mouse button to get everything resituated. And then over here in our properties, I'm not trying to overwhelm you. I promise I'm trying to just show you the basics right at the beginning, the bare necessities, if you will. Over here in our properties panel, see we already have like a couple things open up over here. It's kind of stressing me out. I don't like to have that many things over here. And this number decides how many things you can have over here. I like to do like 2 or 3. I get stressed very easy. Now we hit 2, we only have 2 things over here. We can even hit this X to clear everything out. Bare necessities, done. Let's get doing some visual effects. First thing, actually, hit S over the node graph to open up your project settings. Our frames per second is 30. Just wanted to get that straight. Now, here's the tricky part. I don't want to go too fast and stress you out, but I also don't want to waste your time. So let me explain what we're going to be doing. We're going to be using something called Copycat. We are only going to rotoscope a couple frames of ourselves, give it to the computer, and it's going to study. It's going to go, this is him, this is not him. It's going to study for a while. 5 minutes if you have a beefy Dell computer. If you have an iMac with no graphics card, no joke, it might take about 24 hours. I'm so sorry, go buy a Dell computer. So it's going to study, it's going to learn, oh my God, this is him, this is not him. And then when we give it new information, the new frames, it'll go, I've seen this before, and it will rotoscope the other frames for us. It's pretty cool. You could start from essentially ground zero. This is me, this is not me. But here's the thing. Nuke has already low-key done this for us. They have something called the Cattery, and in there we have Modnet. They have already pre-trained a pre-trained model with I don't know, trillion billion images of what people look like and what people don't like, and it gives you back this nearly perfect model. So it should already rotoscope it for you. Then you log in with your free Foundry account, hit download, agree. It will start. I don't need it. You're going to take that little file. Actually, should I download it so I can actually show you what I'm talking about? Yeah, let's do it. Don't be so fucking lazy, Curtis. If you go to your downloads, it's right here. You are going to extract Cattery Modnet. It's going to have all this information in here. Then you're going to open up a new file. You are going to go to your PC, your drive, your C drive, your users, your name. Damn, dude. .nuke. You're going to go to your .nuke file, and then in here, you just drag all this information in here. Sure, replace all of it just for fun, right? You drag all that information in there, then you go back into Nuke, plugins, all plugins, update. Now you're going to have something called Modnet. Modnet right there. Now here's the thing. It's going to pretty much rotoscope us. Look at this. Bink. Fucking cool, right? So the thing is, while I'm showing you this a little bit ahead of time, you're like, oh, that's all I had to do? It's got problems. Not for me though, because not gonna lie, I kind of know how this rotoscoper kind of works. So I did kind of record my footage in like the best possible conditions. I'm the only one in the frame. I'm wearing dark clothes that contrast from the background. Like I planned this out, right? But here's the thing, even like I just said, it still has little errors. What is that thing right there, right? So what I recommend you do, download Modnet, find out where your errors are. I really don't have that much. This is a pretty solid rotoscope. So download Modnet, go through, find out your problem areas. Well, what's that? I have a problem area right here on frame 89. And then as I get farther away on frame 196, I have this thing right here. So the reason I'm showing you this ahead of time, I'm not trying to stress you out. I'm not purposely trying to make you leave the video early. When we use Copycat, you have 2 options. You can start from ground zero. You can show the computer your footage, and this will be the first time it's ever seen a human. Or you can use something like Modnet as a head start. So you only have to show it like what your specific human looks like. You know what I mean? So use Modnet, find out your problem areas, your problem frames. So now we know our problem areas. Let's isolate those. We said frame 89. Let's go to frame 89 with our footage selected. Tab, we're going to add a frame hold. It's like a freeze frame. Put that off to the side. Don't need you right now. Go to our last problem frame, was our frame 196. Tab, frame, hold, another freeze frame. Connect that back in. Now the problem with this, it just froze the frame, but it's still as long as the entire video. I just want to short it down to 1 frame. And you do that really quickly by adding a frame range node. But then set it 1 to 1. There's only 1 frame. This is pretty much going to be a quick Flash Notes version of the tutorial Foundry already made on the Copycat node. It's amazing. If I go too fast or if I don't fully explain something and you want to know more about it, I will put another link to Foundry's video. Amazing. It was my first ever Nuke tutorial. Go back over here, view this, another frame range node, 1 to 1. Now all of our frames only last 1 frame. You're gonna go, but if I view this one, it still goes for the entire thing. It's really only on this frame right here. It's just how it shows information. If a clip already ended, it kind of just shows like where that frame last ended. It's a little confusing. I'm very sorry. So now what we're gonna add, we're gonna hit tab. We're gonna add something called append clip. This is going to put our clips in order. We go 1, and we grab this one over here, 2. Now, if we view this, and we go to frame 1, it's frame 89. If we hit the arrow key to go next, it's frame 196. And if we keep going, it's still frame 196, because what I just said, it kind of just still shows the last thing it saw. A little confusing. But anyway, we have our 2 frames isolated. Perfect. Now we're going to do a very quick roto of them. So we go to frame 1, we're going to click on this frame range right here. We're going to hit O, and we're going to rotoscope. If we zoom in on Matt Smith right here with our, what is it called? Just called a Bezier tool, Bezier curve tool. We're just going to do a very quick rotoscope of ourselves. I forgot to say, if you hit the space while your mouse is over a thing, it'll make it full screen. Sweet. First frame done. Hit next. Click here, hit O, and do it again. Boom. Second frame done. And then also, I think you're supposed to go to Roto, click on the frame, and click Replace, because if you hit R, G, and B on your keyboard, if you tab through them, you can see you're viewing the different channels of color information. So if I hit R, black means not much red in the frame, and then white means a lot of red in the frame. If I hit B for blue, it goes brighter because this is blue over here. So R, G, and B allows you to switch through your color channels, and then A shows you your alpha. So there we go. If we go back in these, we have a perfect alpha channel. Not so perfect, because I will say I didn't do, if I double click on this again, I didn't do the best job, because that's just, I'm a sloppy rotoer, right? The Copycat thing's pretty forgiving. I won't go too deep into it, but it can kind of fix your own rotos. But let's say you really didn't want to rotoscope in Nuke. Let's say you really wanted to rotoscope in a different program, like maybe using the object selection tool in Photoshop or the Rotobrush tool in After Effects. I have a love, mostly hate relation with After Effects, but I understand the reliance on the Rotobrush tool. I think it sucks frame to frame. It's terribly inconsistent. I have to fight it all the time, but on like isolated frames, it's not that bad. So let's say you rotoscoped your footage in After Effects. Let me show you what that would look like. Make sure nothing's selected. I bring in these, boom, right here. So what I have here is I have the rotoscoped version out of After Effects. I only did 4 frames. It's still pretty sloppy. Like I got somewhat better detail on the hair, but for the most part, like it's, what the fuck is that? That's user error. I can't blame After Effects. That's me. I accepted that. Anyway, so I rotoscoped in After Effects. I exported those 4 frames, and then I also exported those exact 4 frames without the Rotobrush tool, because we need to give Copycat a before and an after. So I did that. And then also, it gets a little complicated here, but whatever you exported out of After Effects, if you exported out as a, for some reason, an H.264, or if you did a Apple ProRes 444 like I did, export the entire clip again as that format, because whatever you train Copycat on, even though if it looks the exact same, whatever the codec is, it's only going to work on that codec. So if I'm training mine on the original ProRes 422, and then so my Copycat's only going to work on ProRes 422. But when I exported out of After Effects, I did ProRes 4444. So I exported the entire clip out again as 4444. That'll make more sense in a minute. All you need to worry about right now is these 2 things. So I'm just letting you know right now, we're going to come back to this. I'm not leaving these gone forever, but I am going to show you how to do this also if you rotoscoped a different program. But if you rotoscoped in Nuke like I did with these 2 frames, let's do that real fast. We're going to hit tab, Copycat, our beloved. It has an input and it has a ground truth. That's why I named these input and ground truth. A little bit of foreshadowing there for you. Input is going to be our before and ground truth is going to be our after. So after, like as in like our rotoscoped video. If you're over here, you already have them separated into before and after, but we kind of have our before and after in the same file. So if you hold down control, these little yellow dots appear, you can grab those and make these little dots that kind of just make it easier for organizing. And this is probably the worst way I can do this, but it's how I do it. And I'm not trying to make this confusing, but if you hit control right here and grab this, shake it free, you got a little dot. Do it again, get a couple little dots going, boom. We have now separated our footage. And now we can take this right here, plug our ground truth into here and our input into here. Still come from the exact same source. These are the exact same things. But right now we're going to put stuff on these lines that separate them, that separate our before from our after. And we can actually plug our viewer into here. So our ground truth is our after, and we have our alpha information is our roto information. But do you remember earlier when I brought in Modnet and it didn't really rotoscope our footage, it kind of just made it red? That's kind of like the standard for the Cattery, which is what Nuke trains all of its things on. It's depth estimation, it's Modnet background matting, segmentation. It's all kind of trained on the red channel. Don't know why. But if we want to play along, if we want to play friendly and we want to actually use Modnet, we have to play by its rules and we have to put our alpha channel into the red channel. We're going to hit tab with, what are we doing, ground truth? Yes. We're going to hit tab and we're going to bring in a shuffle node. That's how we can juggle our information around. The information that we want to plug into ground truth is in our alpha, but we want it to our red. We can simply plug it in there. And if we hit 1 to view our shuffle node, our alpha information is now in the red channel. But we still have green, blue, and alpha. If you hit black right here, it can just kind of black those out, give them all zeros. And boom, we have what looks like a perfect thing. Like we have exactly what we want. We have our alpha channel red. However, the information is still there. If we look at the shuffle node, this red, G, B, and white represent red, green, blue, and alpha. And it's showing that the information is still there. Even though we blacked them out, it's still doing that information. We just want to get rid of it. So we can actually do is hit tab, remove, and you can switch this to keep. Channels, RGB, only red. Now we only have the red channel. We still have to do this for the other one too though, because it still has an alpha channel. We just got to get rid of that alpha channel. So if we click here, hit tab, remove, set it to keep, just RGB, no A. Did that do it? Boom! So now our input node, this is perfect. We have it all set up. Our input, that is our RGB, just our visual information, is only red, green, and blue, and our alpha information is just red. If you're wondering, like, why are you making this such a big deal? Because you will get an error message if you don't. So now if we view over here, and we view over here, boom! View over here, boom! You can, not trying to get too advanced, but you can have multiple viewers. If you click here and hit 1, and you click here and hit 2, and you can actually switch between them with the 1 and 2. But that's too advanced for you. So right now, we have our Copycat perfectly set up. Our ground truth over here, our remove over here. Now, as you guessed, you can do the exact same thing over here. You can just take your input, put a remove node, keep RGB, ground truth. It's the exact same thing. Shuffle, plug your alpha into red, remove everything else, tab, remove, keep, RGB, no BG. If we view that, look at that. If we do that trick we learned, 1, 2. Looks like one of those cool edits. Then you do the exact same thing. You take your Copycat just like this. Ooh, wrong one. That's a copy node. That'll come in handy later. We take our Copycat, we plug our ground truth into here, our input into here, and you're following along perfectly if you rotoscope in another program. Sorry, I'm not trying to leave you guys out. So now if we go to our main one where we rotoscoped in Nuke, double click on your Copycat data directory. This is just where we're going to store the information. This is where we're going to store the instructions on how to rotoscope you in this footage. I just usually put mine on my desktop and I never use it again. I delete it immediately. New folder. I'm just going to call it Copycat 1. Hit open. Perfect. Epochs, probably even saying that wrong. It's set to 10,000 by default. This is just how many steps is it going to train. The more steps, the more accurate the roto will be for the most part. The fewer steps, the shorter it'll be, like how quick it's going to train. 10,000 is pretty good. That usually works. And then if it doesn't work, you can always add more. It's pretty good at saving where you last left off. If I set this to 10 billion and I hit go and I walked away, got some food and I came back, I could hit cancel in the middle of it and it will still remember where I last left off. It's very freaking cool. So you can set set it to how high you want, how little you want. I'm just going to set it at 10,000 right now. Okay, now don't touch your mouse. Now I'm going to show you why we did the things that we did. Because in a minute, we're going to use the advanced tab and initial weights, and we're going to use that Modnet thing we had before as like a head start, as a jumping off point. But right now, if we didn't do that, and if we just went to start training and we go to progress, this is the Copycat learning. We start from ground zero. This is our input footage. This is our ground truth. And this is the robot's best guess at what we want it to do. Kind of already got my foot down a little bit right there. But see how it's messing up a lot? It's like, oh, does it want him to rotoscope the ground? Is this tree him? It's taking time. This little graph over here is how many times it's messing up, and it's messing up a fair amount. It's like, is he leaves? What does he want me to do here? Is he this tree back here? It's pretty sloppy. That's how we started off at ground zero. But we didn't do this to start off at ground zero. Hit cancel. We did this to start off with a head start. So I'm going to go over to my Copycat and I'm going to delete all that information we just made. And then now, again, don't do this part. If I deleted these things, it looks the exact same. It goes, oh, perfect. This and this. If you just skipped those steps and you didn't play nicely with how Nuke likes to do its training, and you hit advanced, initial weights, human matting, medium, and you hit start training, it's going to go, error message. You don't play nicely. That's not how we like our data around these parts. Now we can bring those boys back, but I'm just trying to prove why we do the things we do, okay? I'm not trying to sound crazy. All right, so now what you're going to do, now you can actually pick up your mouse again. We're going to go to advanced, initial weights, human matting, medium. And then now if you did everything properly, if you have the remove here set properly, have the Copycat here set properly, and you hit start training, boom, it's actually going to work. You're not going to get an error message. If you go over to progress, you can see it's not messing up. Like, it just started and it knows what a human is. This is why we do the things we do. Before, remember when we started off at ground zero, it was like, is this tree him? This computer knows. This computer fucks. Look at that. It's messing up a little bit, but this computer knows what to do. So we let this train for a little bit, 5 minutes, because I have a beefy Dell 3660 precision tower, but it has also worked really well on my Dell 5690 precision laptop. Go buy those computers today, please and thank you. I used to have an iMac when I first did this, and I'm not even kidding. This took 24 hours. That wasn't a made up number. I had to hit go, and my iMac was like, and just did that for 24 hours. So go buy a Dell computer.
If I could save time in a bottle.
Only taking 5 minutes. I'm already getting impatient. Mine looks pretty good. I'm just going to hit cancel. Like I said before, I can hit cancel in the middle, and it didn't just like give up and go, oh, you don't want that information, and delete everything. It still remembered where we left off. Whenever you're done, you hit create inference. And this is pretty much our Modnet. This is our version of Modnet specifically trained. I bit my lip again. Specifically trained on this footage. Now we can take this and treat it just like how we had Modnet. Let's take this footage, bring it over here, plug it in. A random frame it's never seen before. So view on this footage. Sorry. We are viewing this. We go to a random frame. We never trained it on frame 34. Or no, we had trouble at the end, remember? We go to frame 194, and then we view this. Boom! Remember when we had those errors right here? Like if we created a Modnet right here. Oh, not midget. Modnet. If we take this and we view this instead, we had this error right here, but now we don't. Could we have just rotoed that out? This is a tutorial. I could have done that, but you couldn't have. So now if we view our inference and we just go through here, this whole thing, it's pretty solid. Again, I probably should have let it train for a little bit longer, but I'm just proving a point. But let's say I had a bunch of errors and I was like, whoa, I'm really not happy with this. You could easily just go right back to Copycat and just hit resume training, and it'll pick off where it last left off. Pretty freaking cool. Anyway, but now you're like, great, I'm red. Now what do I do with this information? Oh, sorry. And if you used this Copycat over here with your outside footage, you plug it into your 444 footage. This should give me like an error. So look at, because I trained this, this inference node is trained on this, which is Apple ProRes 422, and this is 444. They don't play exactly nicely. Like I'm having an error here that I'm not having over here. Kind of weird. Oh, a little bit. I should have trained a little bit longer, but you see what I mean? You have to kind of, whatever format you train the thing in, you have to use it on that same format. Like one time I trained it on PNGs and I was like, oh, I applied it to my 4444 and I was having errors because I'm stupid. So there you go. If you train your thing in Photoshop and on PNGs, you have to train it on a PNG sequence. Sucks, but that's the rules. That's why I really like doing it in Nuke. I'm sure there's a way around it. I'm probably being stupid, but that's just my information. So now you're wondering, great, we made you red. How do we get this red information into the alpha channel information? And some of you are going, oh, the shuffle node! And I'm so proud of you, but you are wrong. What we're actually going to end up using is something called the copy node. It is like the shuffle node, but it's easier to take information from two different videos and plug them into one. For instance, we got a little glitch on our chest right there. Should I let it train for longer? We were going to plug in the B into our original footage, and we're going to plug in A into our inference node. If we double click on copy, we can see that this is our alpha, this is our A channel, A, and this is our B. We want to plug in the red into the alpha. Now, if we click here to view this and we hit A, now it has an alpha channel. And if you're wondering like, why isn't it applied? I should have mentioned this earlier. Oh, dude, I should have let that thing train for a little bit longer. It's kind of fucked up my arm a little bit. If you're wondering why we still see everything, that's because After Effects may have like fucked you up like it fucked me up with like the difference between straight alpha and pre-multiplied alpha. We still do have an alpha information. This is technically a straight alpha. It has all the RGB information of the entire video, but the alpha information is just on a separate plane of existence. So if we wanted to do something like apply it, if we wanted to pre-multiply it, it actually kind of like applies our alpha. That's one way of doing it. I prefer working in straight alpha, and I think most programs do. I should say also, let's say you have a little bit of like things on the side, like don't look yet. Let's say your footage has stuff like this. You have like, oh, it's got a little bit of red in the background. You don't have to necessarily train it for longer. What you could do is you could add what I just deleted, but you weren't supposed to see. Hit G to add a grade node, and you can increase the black point. I don't have those. I'm faking them by lowering the white point. But let's say you had all these things right here. You can increase the black point. Fuck, it's really fucking with mine because I don't have those glitches. But you can increase the black point. Oh, kinda. To drown those out. I don't have those. But you can increase the black point, and sometimes you can use it to fix this information. Really, if I have a glitch like this, I should train for longer. But I can actually lower the white point to kind of fix it. Kind of makes my matte a little rough and ugly. It brings back more glitches. Makes it a very hard map. But you can kind of play around with the grade node over here on your inference to kind of fix some errors that you might have. Pretty cool. So that's that. That's ugly, dude. If I delete this, does that kind of make it better? That kind of makes it better. I don't need that. So what I'm going to do is I'm also going to delete this pre-mult node, and I'm going to get this footage out of here. But if you have like little errors, like let's view this. Let's put a pre-mult right here. I should have said this before you hit render. If we go to like where my elbow disappeared, if you want to fix something like this, an easy way to do that is under your inference, you are going to hit tab, type in Roto paint, and let's hit 1 to view that. You can see the error right here. Roto paint is pretty much just a paintbrush. When you go over here to one of these is a paintbrush. Brush, it was already on brush. Let's set this to red by just dropping green and blue. You hear that loud ass animal in the background. I'm gonna snap its neck in a second. And then you can simply just paint just like that. Size, we can maybe make it a little bit bigger. Size, you can make it just a little bit bigger, maybe drop the hardness, but make sure it's set to single. So it's only lasts for 1 frame. And then boom, you just paint that right back. And then you go next frame and you can paint that right back. Ooh, look at that. And then if we click over here to view it, oh, we got a little sloppy over here. So we'll use this Roto paint, this first one for drawing, for adding things. Then if we hit tab, we add another Roto paint. We can make this one for removing things. We'll also get the brush tool, except we'll make this black, just like that. And then we can hit exit and we can paint it like this. So there's like a quick little correction. I don't think you want to do this for a long time. I think the most important thing is training your model for a longer time if you have a lot of errors, or just teaching it new frames. Maybe redo another model with other frames if you're having a lot of errors on like a certain frame. But if you just have like every once in a while, there's like a quick little flash where your thumb disappears. Boom, you just go over here, click on that, paint it in. Goes by pretty fast. Back a frame, you just paint that in. Look at that. Easy. I don't know why it thinks my elbow's disappearing. And then if we actually click to view this, you can see what we're actually doing. Obviously, we are just, oh, look at that. My whole fucking arm disappears for a second. Paint that back in, paint this back in, do that. Maybe if I was like, oh man, I really hate my chin, I can double click here. I can trim that down a little bit, fix all of your insecurities. If I was perfect. So don't forget to Control S and save that. So now we're going to render this out of here. We hit tab, type in write. We read the footage in. Now we're going to write it out. We are going to go to file. We're going to do an image sequence. So we're going to go to home, desktop. We're going to create a new folder. I'm just going to call it Curti Birdie Roto PNGs. And then I'm going to create the file name right here. Curti Roto ####.png. The reason for these hashtags or pounds is because when we export these out as PNG sequences, Nuke will replace these hashtags with the frame number. So if we export on frame 50, that frame will be an image called curtyroto0050.png. So put those hashtags right there, hit save, hit RGBA. We worked so hard for that alpha. Bring that alpha in here. RGBA. I think we're 8-bit. Yeah, we are. And then you can hit render right here. But if you have the free version of Nuke, you're going to hit an error message. It's going to say, slow your roll, dog. You don't have money for this. So what you're going to do is before this write node and after this copy node, you are going to add something called a reformat node. Add a reformat node. And you are going to set it to the acceptable 1080p. That is what Nuke allows. But maybe you have vertical footage like I do. Just hit turn. It turns it for you. It knows you're a cheapskate and it already has a pre-programmed thing in there for you. Now, can we hit render? Cool. So now it's doing that. Now, before we take it into Switchlight, I think we have to rotate it back. I think theoretically we could plug it into Switchlight with it rotated, and it'll probably do the exact same thing, and I'm being paranoid, but I'm going to rotate it before I get it into Switchlight. So what we're going to do is I'm going to open up Blender. I tried this a minute ago in DaVinci, and I don't think DaVinci works on image sequences, or maybe I'm doing it wrong. I'm going to open up Blender. I'm going to go to Compositing, Use Nodes, Delete Render Layer, Shift A. I always hate going from Nuke to Blender because I have to mix up Tab and Shift A. Blender should just be Tab. We're going to add in an image sequence, and then we're going to add in that footage that it's currently exporting. I just want to see something right now. Curdy Roto, what's temp? Anyway, all of this except for you. Import image sequence. What we have so far. Image here, alpha here. I'm so dumb. We need a shift. I keep hitting tab. We need a shift A. We need a viewer node. Image, alpha, and its alpha's already set to straight versus pre-multiplied. What the fuck? Set it to straight. Boom. We have our guy. I never learned how to navigate in the compositor tab in Blender. We have our guy. I'm guessing right now, but I'm fully trying to guess how we move things. How do we rotate? Oh, can we just add a rotate node? Oh, do we need another one for the alpha channel too? -90, Shift D. Whoa! I think that's how you do it. Cool. Unplug that into there. I think we just rotated it. Maybe I'm super dumb, but that looks like it worked. So now we just render it out, I think. Here, set it to 30 frames per second. Again, as a PNG with the RGBA, 16-bit color depth. Output. I go to my desktop. I create a new folder. Call it QWERTY Rotated. Create a new folder, call it that. Again, QWERTY rotated underscore. You don't have to put the hashtags in Blender. You just put underscore, hit accept. But I believe you can just hit Control 12 and it'll export it, right? Oh, wait, shit. Why is it like that? Our new file type is actually going to be 1080 by 1920, right? So now if I hit Control F12, boom, and now we rotate it in Blender. I just made that up as I went along. Could you tell? Probably. Don't do this. You keep yours going. I'm going to stop mine, and I'm actually not going to rotate it because I don't need to rotate mine. I have the full version of Nuke. Kiss my ass. But that's what you would do. You would go into Blender and rotate it back before you plug it into Switchlight. Now, while that's doing that, let's get Switchlight open. You're going to log in with your Google. Right now, it's free. If they were any smarter, they would make this thing cost a lot of money because this is the craziest program ever. If it's your first time opening up Switchlight, this system dependency and AI model are going to take a pretty lengthy time to update or install or whatever it does. But if you use it pretty often, it updates a fair amount, actually. Sometimes I'll open up Switchlight and this will be loading for a minute. It updates all the time, but the first time you open it, it's going to take the longest. So now we're into Switchlight. My thing's still rendering. So let me talk about Switchlight. We have our AI virtual production. This is pretty much like their little program, their own little studio just to do all of these things, but you can do them independently. They got material extraction, they got light map extraction, AI background removal, and you're like, what the fuck? We spent all that time doing all this background removal and they have a thing for it? No offense to Mr. Biebel, the CEO of Switchlight, but it's not there yet. I know they are working on a version right now, and I know they're working on updating it, and I don't know if I'm allowed to say that. I don't know if I signed an NDA, I forget. But I know they're working on making their AI background removal better. Right now, though, it either works or it doesn't, and I can't get it to work. There's no way to correct it. Either you plug it in there and it works right away, I can't get it to work that well for me. So that's why we did all that time rotoscoping. And our PBR neural enhancer, this one's the kind of hard one to explain, and I might even be 100% wrong. But in Switchlight, if you use their program, if you take your footage, rotoscoped it, put it in here, and then gave it one of these 360 HDRI backgrounds that they're using, what Switchlight will do is all these things together. It will create a material extraction. It'll separate you into your three-dimensional parts so they can do the relighting. And then it'll do the relighting from this background. And then they have a little secret step at the very end that I think is just best described as like a little AI enhancer. Because right now, if you just do the material extraction, you can look a little plastic. You can look a little CG and uncanny valley. I got that comment on my Black Parade video because I'm technically CG. I used this. So what their program is built into it is it'll do this and then has that little fine little film just to bring back a little bit of realism. But they know not everyone uses this part of the program. Most people are using this material extraction thing. So what they want you to do, I think, to the best of my knowledge, the best of my research, you make your entire video, you use this material extraction, you make your thing in Blender, and then you export with all your new relighting on your person. Then you export just the guy, just that person, and then you bring it into here and you use this PBR neural enhancer that is kind of like that final AI enhancer step that brings back a little bit of realism that you don't get when you just use material extraction. I, however, am probably doing it wrong. wrong because I never look that good. I always look a little bit cold. It changes my colors just a little bit too much. I don't think it's worth it to me. I do not use this PBR neural enhancer. I'm just going to use this AI virtual production thing strictly to get a material extraction. And as soon as Nuke is done, I can show you what that looks like. Fuck it, I can do it before. Get started. I'm going to hit up AI virtual production. I'm going to open up this one. Even though I'm just using it to get that material extraction, I really like how this layout looks. Source PNG, select input path. Where did I put it? On my desktop, Cattery Roto. It's still going right now, but just open up that, hit skip background removal. That's why we spent all that time rotoscoping. Temporal consistency. You can read this if you want. Basically, 0 means it's not going to be consistent frame to frame, but 4 means it's going to be too consistent and be a little ghosty, I think they say. I like 2. 2's always worked good for me. I haven't had a problem with 2. We always use 2. And then we can hit analyze PBR sequence. Now, I wonder who's faster. Is Nuke going to render out these frames faster than Switchlight's going to analyze them and like it's going to work as a machine, or is my computer just going to fucking explode? Sweet. So that's done. It obviously didn't render all the other frames because Nuke is quite literally still rendering them, but it obviously doesn't look the best because it is still in the program. Once we take it to Blender and we can do like ray tracing, it's going to look a lot better. Trust. We can have more fine tune over it. But look at it. It's like doing the lighting thing. I'm blue because I'm facing the blue, and now it's glitching out a little bit. I honestly, no offense, I think that's just because of the Switchlight program. I haven't seen that problem before. But I need this to get the other frames. So jump cut to tomorrow. Alakazam. Good morning again. I actually let it finish rendering on Nuke, and then I brought it in here. And we got some problems. My elbow disappears for a quick second here. I'm going to show you how to fix that. Also, you're going to see like it removes my eyebrows. It always does that to me, but it will look better. I think that's just because how Switchlight looks in the program. It will look better in Blender, but we did this. Now we can actually exit out of Switchlight, and it's going to appear right here. Wherever you saved all your PNGs, wherever you brought them into Switchlight, it's going to be in a new thing called materials right here. So let's get Blender open. I can close it in Nuke and everything. Blender, I like 4.1. Not a big fan of 4.2. It's slower. Anyway, delete everything, file, import like we did before, Omniscient file, desktop. Don't look at my fucking files. Sweet. All right, so we actually don't need this little mesh thing. We're not going to use it, but we can use it right now to line things up. Let's take our camera. This is what I do. I take our camera and I shift click on our mesh, Control P to parent it. And then I want to make sure we don't actually ever render this mesh here. We can view it here, but I like to do this so I can like rotate my camera and align it with the world better. Like if, for instance, I was like, I actually want to walk along the y-axis. I could do things like that. Looks just a little bit better because I go make a 90-degree turn. Now I'm just more better lined up with the environment. I can hide the scan again. We just need this camera. And then here's what we're going to do. We are going to go to File, Import Images as Planes, because 4.2 got rid of that add-on, or I'm dumb. I just can't, it's not in 4.2 anymore, and I can't find it. Import images as planes. Go to Cattery Roto, just import your first frame because it brings in a perfect little plane that's already set up for your aspect ratio. Now we go to shading, and then now we're actually gonna import all of our other stuff. We are gonna Shift A, image sequence, desktop, materials, albedo. This is like your diffuse. This is your color. We're just going to click here, hit A for all of them. Import image sequence. Put it right there. Alpha, yes, straight. Plug alpha into alpha. Color into base color. Turn on cyclic and auto refresh. Move that out of the way. Shift A, image sequence. You're going to get the hang of this real fast. Go up, and now let's do depth. We're going to have a whole thing on depth. Well, let's just import it for now. Click on the first one, hit A, import image sequence. Go down here, turn on cyclic, auto refresh. Cyclic? Is it cyclic? And then for color space, you can do this for the rest of them. Non-color. Boom. Set that off to the side. Shift A. Image sequence right there. Perfect. Up. Key. We don't need key. We already used key. That's for your alpha. We already got that from albedo. Your libido. Normal. This is the most probably important one. Click A. Import image sequence. Cyclic. Auto refresh. Non-color. Shift A. Image sequence. Go up. Roughness. We need roughness. We're going to turn on cyclic, auto refresh, color space, non-color, Shift A, image sequence, up. Specular. I actually don't know how to use specular, but I still import it. Color space, non-color, cyclic, auto refresh. You got everything down. All right, so depth we're going to set over here. Let's grab normal, roughness, and specular, just like that. That'll work. Normal, we're going to add in a normal map. Bing, bong, bang. Plug color to color. Plug normal to normal. We're going to adjust these in a second. Roughness, color to roughness. Specular. This is what I've been doing. It might be wrong, but it works for me. And by works, I mean it gets me a better result than I get without it. So I plug color into, I think it's IOR level. Hope that's the right one. Depth. We're going to plug into we're going we're going to, I don't like displacement. We're going to come back to displacement. I have a whole depth/displacement. I have a whole thing with it I will talk about later. So now we can look at our little guy here. That's a me. We can hit play. Let's go to layout actually, just so I can skip to the middle right here and hit shading. Bam, that's better. Okay, let's go to cycles. Make sure it's set to GPU because we have that beefy Dell computer. And let's get something just really fast for an area light world. If you don't know where to get good HDRIs, by the way, we're just going to add a little skybox for lighting. If you don't know where to get good HDRIs, you should definitely go to Polyhaven. This is where I get a bunch of free ones. HDRIs, you can download any of these. I think you know that though. You're familiar with Blender. I'm just going to add in a basic sky texture just so I can kind of see some lighting right now. Z, rendered, go back to object. All right. Maybe that was a bad idea. Maybe no world. Maybe let's just make this all black and let's add in like a light. Add in like a point light. So we can, now we can show off the power of Switchlight. Look at that. Oh, that's pretty cool, right? It's got like a little bit of occlusion right here on my arm. Or what's it called? Like a shadow. It can tell like, oh, dude, I like this stuff. I like this stuff a lot. We can make it red. We can make one over here that's blue. Look at that. Now what I also like to do is in object on my guy here, I do turn the normal map down to about 0.5. Oh, maybe that's too much. Like holding down shift, you can go slower. Maybe just like, I don't know, 0.7. I usually play around with this. Sometimes like just 1 is just a little bit too strong for me. I don't know. Maybe that's just me. 0.7 I think looks pretty nice. And I'm just going to delete the depth. Here's the thing. I'm not trying to sound too confusing, but I'm trying to give you all the information I possibly can because I love visual effects artists. All right. The problem with depth is that it's not there yet. It has problems. CG Matter made 2 amazing videos on Switchlight, and then this next depth thing I'm going to talk about. Gosh dang, every time I find out about something cool in visual effects, CG Matter beats me to a video. You should go subscribe to them. But the idea with depth is that it's supposed to say things like, oh, this foot is closer to the camera than this foot, and it should displace them that way. If we add it in a displacement node, we plug color into height, and then we plug displacement to displacement, and then we go to displacement settings, and we click bump only, but displacement and bump, and then we add a bunch of subdivisions, and then we add in a map range node. I'm trying to remember what CG Matter did that kind of made this work. Anyway, you have errors. There's solutions for this. Maybe more subdivisions for, it kind of fixes it. I think you set this to like 1,000. And then you got to adjust these to be like 0.55 and 0.45. And you play around with these trying to displace things. But you're always got these little triangle trail things here. I can never seem to get rid of those. I hate... Oh my God, I can never get displacement to work. I'm just going to delete this. But I will say, here's my vision for the future. Because in about 5 minutes here, we're going to have problems with these feet. Because right now, we, from the camera's perspective, can tell that this foot is further back in space than this foot. This foot's close to camera, this foot's farther back. But the computer does not know that. It thinks I'm just a singular plane of existence. And in a perfect world, if we got this displacement map running with a really good depth generator, Switchlight's good, but you know what's a better one? Depth Anything V2. And they made a plugin already, not they, but this guy made Depth Anything V2, and I think this other guy made a plugin for Nuke. So you can have the most like accurate depth generator thing I've ever seen. What the fuck? It's really cool, but I can never get it to work for this problem because I don't know how to say this. In a perfect world, our depth generator would be like, oh my God, it would know this foot's further back and it would push it along further back in space, and this foot would be touching the floor, and we'd have accurate shadows, accurate reflections, all those things. But we're not there yet. And I've been experimenting this. I've been playing with like, using the LiDAR in your phone, because do you know that when you use Omniscient, look at this. This is pretty cool. It gives you a depth map. It's just so low quality. It's like 3 pixels. And I'm trying to find a way, is there a way to upscale this? Because this is the most accurate depth map, but it's not consistent. And it's low res, and it has all these problems, and I just don't know what the solution is. One day we'll have good depth generators. Maybe there's a way, maybe one of you geniuses who always like comments on my videos. This sounds sarcastic, but it's not. I'll put like a little thing like, that's a problem. If anyone knows the solution. And then top comments like, you're going to want to change this setting to this setting. I love you guys. If someone else has an idea to mix all of these techniques together, use the Switchlight depth map with the Depth Anything V2, with the LiDAR in my phone. One day, maybe the solution's already here. We just have to use math. I don't know, dude. I tried this for like 2 weeks. When I was doing my Black Parade video, I tried this for so long, I could never get it to work. I do not mess with displacement. I hate this. I delete all of these. I hate you. So now let's get this thing lined up with our camera. I don't need all these subdivisions, but let's keep 6, because we're going to use that in a second. Let's go to layout. And then what we're going to do, we can delete these for now, these lights, and we can actually go to material preview, I guess. Where's my camera? Right there. Now what we're going to do is we are going to do the Ian Hubert method. We're going to click on our guy. We're going to shift click on our camera, Control C. If you have the copy attributes add-on, I can't get it to work in 4.2. It's only available in 4.1 for some reason. And then you click copy location, Control C, copy rotation. We don't have to copy scale. So now our guy is in the exact same spot as our camera. And then what we do is with our guy selected, tab into edit mode, GZZ to slide him here, go here, hit 0 to look at your camera view, and scale this up. But scale it till it's perfect with your camera view, just like that. And then now, what's the next step? Let's go to our camera settings, and it gives you all these things. Oh, it also turns on, I think, go to compositing. It puts all these things here. Hide that. We don't need that. Go to your camera settings, turn off background images. You can maybe keep depth of field. I don't need depth of field right now. Now if we hit 0, boom, it's all like lined up with our camera. But now what we're going to do is we are going to hit Shift A. We're going to add in a plane, scale it up, click on our guy. If you know the famous green screen Ian Hubert tutorial, you know where this is going. We are going to scale up our guy until he touches the ground. Because from our camera's perspective, scaling doesn't do anything. That's why the origin's from the exact same point. I believe as Ian Hubert said it, it's like trigonometry or something.
And because of trigonometry or something like that,
we can scale it up to he is barely touching the floor right here. And this one Ian Hubert does. And then he goes like, oh, he goes a frame back, and then he makes him bigger. The goal is that he never changes size. Because if we just hit play, if we didn't do this, I'm going to be really huge right here. I thought it was going to be tiny. I'm going to be really huge right here. But if I do it accurately, my guy should never change size. My one problem with this, I'm sorry, Ian Hubert, my one thing with this is that I'm always like, I don't know, maybe it's just kind of how I film. I always have people go up and aim down. It's more flattering angles that way. So I'm always like at an angle, and I don't really like that. So what I'm actually going to do, I'm going to do a slightly different method. I am going to go to constraints. Oh, also you were supposed to have parented this. So you're supposed to click on your guy, shift click on camera, Control C, copy location again, copy rotation. And we're supposed to parent this. I'm not going to parent it. What I'm actually going to do is I'm going to go to constraints, and I'm going to add a copy location of the camera. And I'm going to add a copy rotation again of the camera. So it's pretty much like we parented it, but we're not going to copy the rotation of the X axis. Instead, what we're going to do is we are going to click on our guy, tab RXX until he is standing straight up, how normally we would be standing. Best way to do this is hit 7 to go straight down, RXX until he is flat standing, just like that. So now what we're doing is it's still pretty much like we're parented, except it will not rotate along the X axis. But now that we rotate it along the X axis, I'm kind of getting distorted. Like I'm not always the same. How do I say this? I'm getting a little distorted is all I really needed to say. So now what we're going to do is we're also going to go to our modifiers, and we are going to add a UV project. Object, our camera. Aspect ratio was 6:9. And then now, there we go. I think that's everything. Now if we are XX, I'm still always from the camera's perspective, but this is just because we're going to be going by lights. If your guy's projected at an angle like this, he's going to walk by lights funny. It's just not going to be as accurate. This also allows you to change camera angles later. Like in my Black Parade video, I didn't use the original camera angle. I just had my coworker film me. He always had me in frame the entire time. And then because I knew I was going to have a separate camera look off and do other stuff. If we had a separate camera from somewhere else, this would look really funny. You know what I mean? If I'm angled, it still looks good from this camera, but it's going to look really funny from other cameras. I'm getting a little sidetracked. I'm getting a little drunk. It's Halloween. What are you going to do? And so now what we're going to do is the fun part. You are going to line up your guy until his foot just barely disappears, just like that. Make sure you're in timeline view and hit set keyframe. Hit set keyframe. You can hit N right there to view it. Hit I over scale because we just did this one. Hit play. Walk a little bit. Oh, my foot disappeared. Scale it till it's not. And then with auto keyframe, it'll set the next keyframe. Oops, my foot disappeared. There we go. Oops, my foot disappeared. There we go. You just put one foot in front of the other. Soon you'll be walking across the floor. Anyway, looks like shit. Well, look at, I'm kind of maintaining the same height. If I hit 1, I can see I'm not really growing or shrinking. Oh, that's a bad one right there, dude. Come on. I'm not really growing or shrinking that much. Now here's the fun part where you like put cool stuff in here. You like drop in a cube. You like put it around places. Maybe I walk by the cube. Whoa, that's so cool. Whoa, I'm like walking down a hallway. Whoa. Whoa. Soon you'll be walking across the floor. You just put one foot in front of the... Oh, what the fuck just happened? Oh, shit. Don't forget to turn off auto keyframing mode. I just fucked up. You guys aren't supposed to be keyframed. Okay, now I want to talk about the shadow problem. If we go to shading and we add in just that sky texture again, and then we go right here, plug in a color. Let's rotate him a little bit. So now you're already seeing the problems. Because we know this foot should be like touching the ground. Maybe in a couple frames it'll be touching the ground. That should be touching the ground. But our shadow says otherwise. And this is what depth should be fixing. I want a perfect world where the depth maps will automatically know, oh, this foot's actually close to the camera, and it can push this further back in space, and I'll go, this foot's far away, and I'll push it further back in space, and I'll fix the shadow problem. Theoretically, it should also fix this whole problem where we have to manually scale this. I'm just saying, please, dear God, someone fix this problem. This is a problem that I'm sure Ian Hubert's been fighting for years. So anyway, we know this foot's touching the ground, and we know this foot should be touching the ground too, but our shadow says otherwise. If you have light coming from like the side, you turn flat. There's a lot of problems with this. This is as good as we got right now. The technology will get better. Thank you so much for watching. I love all of you. I love visual effects. Please send me whatever you make. And then also, don't forget to composite this after you render this all. Don't forget to watch my other video I probably mentioned like 10 times yesterday. But I have that how to composite your CG to look like iPhone footage. It always does the trick. It always makes people think it's really filmed on an iPhone most of the time. Thank you so much for watching. I love all of you. It already was Halloween by the time I edit this, but happy Halloween.